Hey there, welcome back. Tonight we're going somewhere deep, somewhere dark, somewhere filled with stories that will break your heart in the gentlest way possible. We're descending into Hallownest, a kingdom of bugs buried beneath the earth, and we're going to talk about the saddest stories this world has to offer. These are tales of love and loss, of sacrifice and regret, of bugs who deserved better than the fate they received. Some of these stories will make you feel something. That's okay. Sadness, when it belongs to someone else somewhere far away, can be strangely comforting. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, that others have suffered and endured and sometimes found peace. Before we begin, if these videos help you drift off at night, consider subscribing. It helps more people find this quiet place, and it means more than you know. Now, settle in, adjust your pillow, pull your blanket close. Let the weight of the day begin to lift from your shoulders. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nothing to fix, nothing to solve. Just listen. Just breathe. Just let these stories carry you gently, slowly, down into sleep. We begin with a miner and a song she used to sing. In the crystal peak high above the City of Tears, there is a tunnel where pink crystals glow softly in the darkness. The light they cast is gentle, almost warm, a contrast to the cold stone that surrounds them. This is where Myla works, or rather, where she used to work. When travellers first encounter her, she is alive in every sense of the word. She hums a tune as she swings her pickaxe, a simple melody that echoes through the cavern. She's cheerful, friendly, happy to see another face in these lonely tunnels. She talks about her work, about the crystals, about the song she can't quite get out of her head. She doesn't know where the song came from. She just woke up one day with it playing in her mind, and now she can't stop humming it. She doesn't seem worried about this. She seems content. She has her work. She has her song. What more does a bug need? But something is wrong. The song Myla hums is not her own. It is the song of the Radiance, the forgotten goddess who spreads her infection through the dreams of sleeping bugs. Myla doesn't know this. She doesn't understand what's happening to her. She just knows that the song is getting louder, that it's harder to think about other things, that sometimes she forgets what she was doing or why she came to these tunnels in the first place. If you return to Myla later in your journey, after the infection has spread further through the kingdom, you will find her changed. Her eyes glow orange now. Her dialogue is confused, fragmented. She talks about the light, about how beautiful it is, about how she just wants to be part of it. She is losing herself, piece by piece, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop it. The last time you see Myla, she is no longer Myla at all. She attacks on sight, her pickaxe, swinging wildly, her body moving with the jerky aggression of the infected. The cheerful miner who hummed a song in the crystal tunnels is gone. In her place is a husk, a puppet, a vessel for a god who refuses to be forgotten. And the worst part? You cannot save her. There is no quest to cure Myla, no item that will restore her mind, no secret ending where she recovers and returns to her song. She is simply lost, like so many others in Hallownest. Another casualty of a war between gods that she never asked to be part of. If you strike her down, she drops a single piece of geo. That's all that remains of Myla, a coin and the memory of a song she used to sing. Let that settle into your mind. A bug who wanted nothing more than to work and hum and exist in peace, consumed by a plague she couldn't understand. There was no malice in Myla, no great sin that brought this fate upon her. She was simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with a mind open enough for the radiance to enter. Breathe slowly now. Myla's story is over. She rests now, in whatever way the infected can rest, and so can you. Let your body sink a little deeper into the bed. Let your thoughts grow quieter. There are more stories to tell, but there is no rush. We have all the time in the world. The next story takes us to the Blue Lake, a vast underground reservoir that feeds the eternal rain of the City of Tears. The water here is still and dark, reflecting the pale light that filters down from somewhere far above. It is a peaceful place, quiet and contemplative, the kind of place where you might sit and think about everything you've lost. This is where we find Quirrell at the end of his journey. Quirrell is a scholar, a traveller, a bug who came to Hallownest searching for something he couldn't quite name. When you first meet him, he is sitting at the entrance to the kingdom, looking out at the world below with a mixture of wonder and melancholy. He doesn't remember much about his past. He knows he was a student once, that he had a teacher he loved, that something happened that sent him away from Hallownest for a very long time. But the details are fuzzy, obscured by a fog he cannot penetrate. The fog is not natural. It was placed there deliberately by someone who loved him enough to protect him from the truth. Quirrell's teacher was Monomon, one of the 3 dreamers who sacrificed their consciousness to seal the hollow night and contain the radiance. Before she entered her eternal sleep, Monomon gave Quirrell a gift, a mask that would shield him from the infection while erasing his memories of her. She sent him away from Hallownest so he would not have to witness the kingdom's fall, so he would not have to watch everything they had built crumble to dust. It was an act of love in its way, a teacher protecting her student from a horror she could not prevent. But it was also a curse. Quirrell spent years wandering the wastelands beyond Hallownest, not knowing who he was or where he came from. He felt the pull of the kingdom, the sense that something important was waiting for him in the depths, but he couldn't remember what. He was a bug without a past, searching for a future he couldn't see. When Quirrell finally returns to Hallownest, the memories begin to resurface. He visits the places he once knew, and fragments of his old life come back to him. He remembers the archives, the vast repository of knowledge where Monomon conducted her research. He remembers the lessons she taught him, the kindness she showed him, the way she looked at the world with endless curiosity. And he remembers what she did, what she sacrificed, what she became. The knight encounters Quirrell several times throughout their journey. He is always thoughtful, always gentle, always willing to share what little wisdom he has. He helps the knight reach Monomon's chamber, understanding that the seal must be broken, that his teacher's sacrifice must be undone if the kingdom is to have any chance of survival. He does not try to stop the knight. He does not beg for Monomon's life. He simply watches with sad eyes as the last connection to his past is severed forever. After Monomon dies, Quirrell can be found one final time at the Blue Lake. He is sitting at the water's edge, his nail resting beside him, gazing out at the stillness. He speaks of his journey, of the things he has seen, of the peace he has finally found. He thanks the knight for everything, and then, if you leave and return, Quirrell is gone. Only his nail remains, half submerged in the shallow water. The implication is clear, though the game never confirms it directly. Quirrell walked into the lake. He had found what he was looking for. He had remembered his teacher, honoured her sacrifice, and helped ensure that her death meant something. And then, with nothing left to anchor him to the world, he let go. Some players interpret this differently. Perhaps Quirrell simply left, wandering off to find new adventures in distant lands. Perhaps his nail fell into the water by accident, and he is out there somewhere, still exploring, still wondering. But the tone of his final conversation suggests otherwise. Quirrell was tired. He had carried the weight of forgotten memories for so long, and now that weight was gone. There was nothing left but the quiet, and the water, and the peace that comes at the end of a long journey. Breathe. Let Quirrell's story wash over you like the still waters of the blue lake. He found his peace, and tonight, so will you. There is no need to be sad for Quirrell. He lived a full life, even if he couldn't remember most of it. He loved and was loved. He learned and taught. He made a difference, in his small way. And in the end, he chose his own ending. That is more than most bugs in Hallownest can say. Let us move now to a different kind of sadness. Not the sadness of death, but the sadness of survival, the sadness of being left behind. In the royal waterways, deep beneath the city, of tears, there is a knight who never stopped believing. His name is Ogrim, though he prefers to be called the Dung Defender. He's loud, boisterous, full of laughter and enthusiasm. He throws balls of dung at his enemies and shouts battle cries that echo through the tunnels. He seems, at first glance, like comic relief, a silly character in a game full of tragedy. But Ogrim's story is one of the saddest in all of Hallownest, precisely because he doesn't realise how sad it is. Ogrim was one of the 5 great knights, the elite warriors who served the Pale King directly. He was not the strongest of them, nor the most skilled, but he was the most loyal. He loved the Pale King with the devotion that bordered on worship. He believed in the kingdom, in its purpose, in the light that the king had brought to the caverns. When the other knights fell or fled, Ogrim stayed. When the infection spread and the kingdom crumbled, Ogrim stayed. When the Pale King vanished and the White Palace disappeared, Ogrim stayed. He's still there, centuries later, defending tunnels that no one uses anymore, guarding passages that lead nowhere important, fighting enemies that pose no real threat to a kingdom that no longer exists. He doesn't know the Pale King is dead, or perhaps he does know, somewhere deep inside, but he cannot accept it. He speaks of his king with present tense, as if the monarch might return at any moment. He talks about the glory days, about the honour of service, about the pride he feels in his duty. He laughs and jokes and seems genuinely happy, but there is something desperate in his cheerfulness, something that suggests he is holding on to the past because the present is too painful to face. If you defeat Ogrim in combat, he is not angry. He is delighted. Finally, a worthy opponent. Finally, someone who can match his strength. He sees the knight as a sign that the kingdom is not truly dead, that there are still warriors worth fighting, that his vigil has meaning. He doesn't understand that the knight is there to end things, not preserve them. He doesn't understand that the world he loved is gone forever. In the dream realm you can fight Ogrim again as the White Defender. This is Ogrim as he was in his prime, before the fall, before the centuries of lonely waiting. He is faster, stronger, more formidable, but he is also happier. In his dreams the kingdom still stands. The Pale King still rules. The other knights are still alive. He fights with joy rather than desperation, laughing and praising his king with every blow. Defeating him feels almost cruel. You're waking him from a pleasant dream into a harsh reality. You're reminding him that everything he loved is gone. But Ogrim doesn't see it that way. He is grateful for the battle, grateful for the chance to serve, even if only in dreams. His loyalty is unshakable. His love is unconditional. He will defend his king until the end of time, even if that king is nothing but bones on a throne in a palace that no longer exists. Rest here for a moment. Think about Ogrim, alone in the dark, still believing. There is something beautiful about that kind of faith, even if it is misplaced. Something admirable about refusing to give up, even when all hope is lost. Ogrim may be deluded, but he is not broken. He has found a way to keep going, to find meaning in a meaningless world. Perhaps that is its own kind of victory. The Pale King himself deserves a place in this collection of sorrows, though his sadness is of a different nature. It is the sadness of a father who killed his own children, the sadness of a god who tried to save his people and destroyed them instead. The sadness of someone who wanted so badly to be perfect that he could not accept any flaw, any weakness, any crack in the vessel he was trying to create. The Pale King came to Hallownest as a worm, a great serpent of immense power. He shed his old form and emerged as something new, something smaller but no less divine. He looked upon the mindless bugs of the caverns and gave them the greatest gift imaginable, consciousness, the ability to think, to dream, to wonder about the world and their place in it. He built a kingdom for them, a civilization of art and culture and purpose. He was their creator, their ruler, their god. But the gift of consciousness came with a terrible cost. The minds the Pale King awakened were vulnerable to another god, an older god, a goddess of light who had been worshipped before the worm ever arrived. The radiance reached through the dream realm and began to reclaim what she had lost. The infection spread, consuming the minds the Pale King had created, turning his subjects into puppets of the god he had displaced. The Pale King needed a solution, and the one he devised was monstrous. He reasoned that the radiance could only infect minds that could think and dream, so he would create a being with no mind at all, a vessel, empty, hollow, incapable of thought or feeling. Into this emptiness the radiance could be sealed, trapped forever in a prison of nothing. But how do you create a being without a mind? The Pale King turned to the void, the primordial darkness that pooled at the bottom of the world. He took his own eggs, the children he had produced with the White Lady, and cast them into the abyss. The void consumed them, hollowed them out, replaced whatever might have grown inside with emptiness. What emerged were the vessels, small pale figures with black eyes and horned heads. They looked like children. They moved like children. But they were not children. They were tools. Most of the vessels failed. They showed signs of thought, of feeling, of will. They were imperfect, and imperfection could not contain a god. These failures were discarded, thrown back into the abyss to die. Their small bodies piled up at the bottom of the world, thousands upon thousands of them, each one a child the Pale King had deemed not empty enough. If you descend to the floor of the abyss you can see them, countless shells cracked and broken, covering the ground like fallen leaves. Each one was alive once. Each one climbed out of the void with something like hope. Each one was looked at, judged, and thrown away. The Pale King killed his own children, over and over, searching for one that was empty enough to save his kingdom. Was he a monster? The game does not give us an easy answer. He was desperate. He was trying to save millions of lives. He believed, truly believed, that this was the only way. But he was also cold, calculating, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for his vision of perfection. In the end, even his perfect vessel was flawed. The Hollow Knight, the one child who seemed truly empty, had developed a bond with its father, a crack in the vessel that would eventually doom everything. The Pale King's plan failed. The infection returned. The kingdom fell, and the king himself was found dead in his white palace, impaled on his own throne. Suicide, murder, the game never tells us. But there is a moment, hidden at the end of the path of pain, that suggests the truth. A memory of the Hollow Knight as a child standing before the Pale King. They look at each other, and in that look there is something. Recognition, connection, perhaps even love. The Hollow Knight was not hollow because the Pale King, despite everything, could not help but care for it. The flaw that doomed the kingdom was not a failure of the vessel, it was a failure of the father. He could not be cold enough. He could not be empty enough. In trying to create something without feeling, he discovered that he himself still had feelings, and those feelings destroyed everything. Breathe slowly. The Pale King's story is a tragedy of good intentions. He wanted to save his people. He wanted to protect the world he had built. But he could not escape the fundamental truth that love and emptiness cannot coexist. In trying to create a being without a heart, he proved that he still had one, and that heart broke him. The White Lady shares her husband's grief, though she carries it differently. She's a being of growth and life, a higher being who chose to bind herself in magical restraints rather than continue producing children for her husband's terrible purpose. She remains in the Queen's gardens, wrapped in her own roots, unable to move, unable to act, able only to wait and mourn. When the night finds her, she speaks with a voice full of sorrow. She recognizes the little vessel as one of her children, one of the many she created and lost. She offers her blessing, her light, her love. She cannot undo what was done. She cannot bring back the thousands who died in the abyss, but she can acknowledge them. She can honor their sacrifice. She can hope that someday, somehow, the cycle will end and her children will find peace. The White Lady chose to stop. She could have continued producing eggs, continued feeding the Pale King's desperate plan. But she couldn't bear it anymore. The guilt was too heavy. The loss was too great. So she bound herself, made herself barren, and waited in the darkness for something to change. She's still waiting. She will wait forever, if she must. A mother who could not save her children, frozen in eternal grief, hoping that one of them might finally set things right. There is something unbearably sad about the White Lady. She's not a villain. She's not even complicit, really. She was a victim of her husband's obsession, forced to participate in horrors she could not prevent. And now she sits alone, wrapped in roots, remembering every child she lost, every small body that fell into the void, every life that was snuffed out before it could begin. Let her sorrow settle into you like rain soaking into earth. It is a quiet grief, a patient grief, the kind that does not scream or rage but simply endures. The White Lady has been grieving for centuries. She will grieve for centuries more, but she has not given up hope, and neither should you. We turn now to a warrior who wanted only one thing, a death worth dying. Her name is Cloth. and her story is one of the strangest and saddest in Hallownest. Cloth is a cicada, large and strong, armed with a blade and driven by a singular purpose. She wants to die in battle, not because she is suicidal, not because she hates herself, but because she believes that a warrior's highest honour is to fall in combat, to go out fighting, surrounded by enemies, giving everything she has until there is nothing left to give. She has been searching for a battle worthy of her end. She has travelled through Hallownest, facing danger after danger, hoping to find the fight that will finally claim her. But she keeps surviving. She keeps winning. And with each victory, her frustration grows. She doesn't want to grow old. She doesn't want to fade away in some quiet corner, forgotten and alone. She wants to matter. She wants her death to mean something. The knight encounters Cloth several times throughout their journey. She's always friendly, always encouraging, always eager to discuss the battles ahead. She speaks of her friend Nola, someone she left behind when she came to Hallownest. She doesn't say much about Nola, but there is a weight in her voice when she mentions the name, a sadness she doesn't fully explain. If the knight meets Cloth in enough locations, she appears during the battle against the traitor lord in the Queen's Gardens. This is the fight she has been waiting for. The traitor lord is powerful, dangerous, a worthy opponent for a warrior seeking a glorious end. Cloth charges into battle alongside the knight, her blade flashing, her voice raised in a battle cry. She fights with everything she has, and in the end she gets what she wanted. The traitor lord strikes her down. She falls, mortally wounded, but not before helping to defeat him. Her final words are content. She found her glorious death. She can rest now. She hopes Nola will understand. But here is the twist that makes Cloth's story so complicated. If the knight does not meet her in certain locations, Cloth survives. She never appears at the traitor lord fight. She never gets her glorious death. Instead, she can be found in Dirtmouth afterward, alive and uncertain. She doesn't know what to do with herself. She wanted to die, but she lived. Now she must find a new purpose. She speaks of returning home, of seeing Nola again. There is hope in her voice, mixed with confusion. She had been so certain of what she wanted. Now she's not sure anymore. Which ending is sadder? The one where Cloth dies, fulfilled but gone? Or the one where she lives, but must confront a future she never planned for? The game doesn't tell us which is better. It simply presents both possibilities and lets us decide. Perhaps there is no right answer. Perhaps both endings are sad in their own way. Cloth wanted meaning. She wanted her life to matter. In death, she found that meaning. In life, she must search for it all over again. Breathe. Think about what you want your life to mean. Think about the battles you're fighting, the purposes you're pursuing, and then let those thoughts go, just for tonight. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You just need to rest. There is a bug in Hallownest who fixes things. His name is Menderbug, and almost no one ever sees him. He appears only rarely in specific circumstances and flees immediately if spotted. He is not a fighter. He is not a hero. He is just a small bug with a simple job: repairing the signs that travellers destroy throughout the kingdom. Every time the knight breaks a sign, Menderbug comes along later and fixes it. He doesn't know why he does this. He just feels compelled to maintain some small order in a world that is falling apart. If you manage to kill Menderbug, which requires deliberate effort and precise timing, you can find his house in the Forgotten Crossroads. Inside is his diary, and reading it is one of the most heartbreaking experiences in the game. Menderbug writes about his work. He writes about the satisfaction he feels when he repairs a broken sign, the small pride he takes in a job well done. He writes about his hopes for the future, his belief that someday the kingdom will be whole again. He writes about the simple pleasures of his life, a warm meal, a comfortable bed, the quiet satisfaction of honest labour. He is innocent, completely, utterly innocent. He has no part in the great conflicts that tear Hallownest apart. He doesn't know about the Radiance or the Pale King or the infection that consumes everything. He just knows that signs get broken and someone needs to fix them. And he has decided that someone is him. Killing Menderbug feels like a crime. Not because he is important, but because he is not. He's just a bug trying to do his small part, trying to maintain some tiny piece of normalcy in a world gone mad. His death accomplishes nothing. It serves no purpose. It is simply cruel, a reminder that even the innocent can be destroyed for no reason at all. Most players never encounter Menderbug. He is hidden, obscure, easy to miss entirely. But those who find him, and those who read his diary, never forget him. He represents something precious and fragile, the belief that small acts of care still matter, even when everything is falling apart. Rest now. Think about the Menderbugs in your own life. The people who fix things quietly, without recognition, without reward. The people who keep going even when it seems pointless. They matter. They all matter. In the resting grounds there is an ancient moth who has been waiting for a very long time. Her name is the Seer, and she is the last of her kind. The moth tribe once tended the graves of Hallownest, guiding spirits to their final rest, maintaining the boundary between the living and the dead. They were the original worshippers of the Radiance, the keepers of her memory, the ones who should have remembered her when everyone else forgot. But they didn't. They turned away, like all the others. They embraced the Pale King's light and abandoned their goddess. And for that betrayal they were punished. The infection hit the moths harder than anyone else. They were the Radiance's chosen people, and their abandonment hurt her most deeply. When she returned as a plague, she consumed them first. The moth tribe was nearly wiped out, their shrines abandoned, their purpose forgotten. Only the Seer remains. She's been waiting in the resting grounds for centuries, guarding the dream nail, remembering the old ways. She does not hate the Radiance, even though the goddess destroyed her people. She understands. She knows that the Radiance was beautiful once, before grief and rage twisted her into something monstrous. She knows that her tribe's betrayal was the wound that started everything. She carries that guilt with her, quiet and patient, waiting for someone to come and set things right. When the night gathers enough essence, the Seer shares the truth of what happened. She explains the Radiance, the betrayal, the infection. She gives the night the knowledge needed to end the cycle, and then, her purpose fulfilled, she fades away. She dissolves into light, ascending to join her tribe in whatever lies beyond. Her final words are peaceful. She has waited so long, now she can rest. The Seer's sadness is the sadness of being the last of her tribe, the last keeper of memories that no one else shares. She's been alone for so long, carrying a burden that no one else can understand. And in the end, she simply lets go. She has done what she needed to do. There's nothing left to hold her here. She can finally rest. Breathe. Let the Seer's peace wash over you. She found her ending, and tonight you will find yours. Not a permanent ending, just a temporary one. A few hours of rest before the world begins again. That's all any of us can ask for. There is a knight in Hallownest who came from somewhere else. Her name is Zima, though she's known now as the Grey Mourner. She was one of the 5 great knights, a warrior of exceptional skill, who served the Pale King with honour and dedication. But she carried a sadness with her that she never fully explained, a weight that had nothing to do with the kingdom or its troubles. Zima had left someone behind when she came to Hallownest, a lover, waiting for her in a distant land. She had promised to return. She had meant to return. But the years passed, and her duties kept her in the kingdom, and the distance between them grew until it seemed impossible to cross. And then the infection came, and the kingdom fell, and Zima learned that her lover had died. She had waited too long. She had put duty before love, and now the person she cared about most was gone forever. Zima retreated to a hidden corner of the kingdom, consumed by grief. She stopped being a knight. She stopped being anything at all. She became the Grey Mourner, a bug defined entirely by her loss, unable to move forward, unable to let go. When the knight finds her, she asks for a single favour. She wants a flower delivered to her lover's grave, a delicate, fragile flower that will break if the knight takes any damage along the way. It is an almost impossible task, requiring perfect play through dangerous areas. But if the knight succeeds, the Grey Mourner is grateful beyond words. She can finally say goodbye. She can finally let her lover rest. The flower quest is one of the most difficult in the game, and the reward is minimal. A few items, a bit of lore. But the real reward is seeing the Grey Mourner find some measure of peace. She's been grieving for so long. She's been stuck, frozen, unable to move past the moment when she learned her lover was gone. The flower is not for the dead. It is for the living. It is Zima's way of forgiving herself, of accepting that she cannot change the past, of finally allowing herself to heal. Rest here. Think about the people you've lost, the goodbyes you never got to say, the words you wish you had spoken, and then let those thoughts go, just for tonight. Grief is heavy. You don't even carry it every moment of every day. Sometimes you can set it down. Sometimes you can rest. The Hollow Knight itself is perhaps the saddest figure in all of Hallownest. It was created to be empty, designed to feel nothing, trained to be a tool, a container, a prison for a god, and it almost succeeded. Almost. But somewhere along the way something went wrong. The Hollow Knight developed feelings. It formed a bond with the Pale King, its father, its creator. It learned to care, to hope, to want. And those feelings, that tiny crack in its perfect emptiness, doomed everything. The Hollow Knight was sealed in the Temple of the Black Egg with the radiance trapped inside it. For centuries it fought a battle that could not be won. The goddess pressed against its mind-burning, consuming, demanding release. The Hollow Knight held on through sheer force of will, but that will was slowly crumbling. The crack was widening. The infection was seeping through. When the knight finally reaches the temple and faces the Hollow Knight, the battle is brutal and sad. The Hollow Knight is massive, twisted, leaking orange infection from wounds in its shell. It fights with desperate strength, its nail swinging in wide arcs, but it is also fighting itself. In moments of clarity, it turns its nail inward, stabbing itself, trying to give the knight an opening. It wants to lose. It wants to be freed. It has been suffering for so long. The Hollow Knight never asked for any of this. It didn't choose to be created. It didn't choose to be hollow. It didn't choose to contain a god or fight an endless battle or suffer for centuries in the dark. It was made for a purpose it never consented to, and when it failed that purpose, it was left to rot. The Pale King's perfect vessel was never perfect. It was just a child who wanted to be loved, and that wanting, that simple, innocent desire for connection, was the flaw that destroyed a kingdom. Breathe. The Hollow Knight's suffering is over now one way or another. The night has ended its torment, freed it from the prison it never chose. There is peace in that, even if it came at a terrible cost. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do for someone is let them go. There is a shopkeeper in Dirtmouth who sighs a lot. Her name is Iselda, and she sells maps that her husband Cornifer draws. She's bored, she's worried, she's stuck in a dying town waiting for a husband who keeps venturing deeper into dangerous territory, wondering if today is the day he doesn't come back. Iselda and Cornifer have a quiet love. It is not dramatic or passionate. It is comfortable, familiar, the kind of love that comes from years of shared experience. He explores, she waits, he returns. She scolds him gently for taking risks. They continue, day after day, finding purpose in small routines. But there is sadness in Iselda's sighs. She's not unhappy exactly. She's just stuck. The world she knew is gone. The kingdom has fallen. The customers have stopped coming. She sits in her shop day after day, with nothing to do but wait and worry and sigh. When Cornifer finishes mapping the kingdom, he retires. He sits in Dirtmouth with his wife, content at last. His work is done. He can rest. And Iselda? She seems happier, with him beside her. But she still sighs sometimes. Old habits are hard to break. Their story is not tragic in the traditional sense. No one dies. No one is consumed by infection. They simply exist. Two bugs in a quiet town, loving each other in their small way. But there is something melancholy about them nonetheless. They are survivors of a catastrophe they barely understand, clinging to each other in the wreckage, hoping that tomorrow will be better than today. Sometimes that's all any of us can do. The last stag is the final survivor of his species. He operates the kingdom's transportation system alone, running routes through empty stations, carrying passengers who no longer exist. His kind were hunted or simply died out, leaving him alone in the tunnels he knows so well. He does not complain. He does not despair. He simply keeps running. When the night opens new stag stations, the last stag is grateful. Finally passengers again. Finally a purpose. He speaks of his loneliness, of the years he spent running empty routes, of the hope he had almost given up. He is old, tired, worn down by centuries of solitary service. But he keeps going. In a hidden station, the last stag discovers something remarkable. An old stagway that leads to a place he had forgotten. And there, in the darkness, he finds eggs. Stag eggs, ancient and dormant, waiting for conditions that might never come. He does not know if they will ever hatch. He does not know if his species will survive. But the possibility is enough. The hope is enough. He returns to his roots with renewed purpose, carrying passengers through a kingdom that is slowly, tentatively, beginning to heal. The last stag's story is one of endurance. He kept going when there was no reason to keep going. He maintained hope when hope seemed foolish, and in the end he was rewarded. Not with certainty, but with possibility. Sometimes that's all we get. Sometimes possibility is enough. Rest now. Let the rhythm of the stag's hooves carry you deeper into sleep. He is still running, somewhere in the dark, still hoping, still believing that tomorrow might be better than today. And maybe, just maybe, he's right. The nailsmith stands at his forge in the City of Tears, devoted to a single purpose, creating the perfect nail. He has spent his entire life working toward this goal. Every day he heats the metal. Every day he hammers and shapes and refines. Every day he gets a little closer to perfection. When the night brings him the materials he needs, the nailsmith's dream finally comes true. He creates his masterwork, a nail of unparalleled quality. And then he asks the night to kill him. He believes his purpose is fulfilled. He has achieved what he set out to achieve. There is nothing left for him to do, nothing left for him to be. He wants to die at the peak of his achievement, to end his story on a high note rather than watching himself decline into irrelevance. If the night strikes him down, the nailsmith dies content. His final words are grateful. He has lived a good life. He has created something beautiful. He is ready to rest. But if the night refuses, if it walks away instead of striking, something unexpected happens. The nailsmith does not die. He does not fade away. Instead, he finds a new purpose. Later, the night can find the nailsmith in Greenpath, living with Sheo, a retired nail sarge who became a painter. The two of them have found each other, found companionship, found joy in creation. That has nothing to do with weapons or violence. The nailsmith paints now, badly at first, but he is learning. He is growing. He is discovering that the purpose he thought defined him was just the first chapter of a longer story. The nailsmith's story is about the danger of tying your identity to a single achievement. He believed that once his masterwork was complete, his life was over. He could not imagine a future beyond that moment. But the future came anyway, and it was better than he could have dreamed. Sometimes the end we imagine for ourselves is not the end at all. Sometimes there is more. Sometimes we just have to be brave enough to keep going. Breathe. Think about the purposes you've set for yourself, the goals you're working toward, and remember that achieving them is not the end. It is just the beginning of something new. There is a creature in the royal waterways who sells rancid eggs. Her name is Took, and she is one of the strangest and sweetest bugs in all of Hallownest. She lives in the sewers, surrounded by filth and danger, seemingly unaffected by the horror around her. She is friendly, cheerful, happy to see the night whenever it visits. She calls the night her, in a way that suggests affection, or perhaps just the limits of her vocabulary. Took is simple. She does not understand the great conflicts that tear the kingdom apart. She does not know about gods or infections or the fate of civilizations. She just knows that she has eggs to sell, and sometimes a nice bug comes by to buy them. Her presence is a small comfort in a world full of tragedy, a reminder that not everything in Hallownest is sad or terrible. Some things are just strange and strangely sweet. We don't know Tuck's story. We don't know how she ended up in the waterways, or why she sells rancid eggs, or what her life was like before the fall. She's a mystery, a small pocket of warmth in the cold darkness. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes we don't need to know everything. Sometimes we can just appreciate the kindness of strangers, even when we don't understand them. The kingdom is full of such small sadnesses. Bugs who lost everything and kept going anyway. Bugs who found meaning in meaningless tasks. Bugs who loved and lost and learned to live with the absence. They are not the main characters of this story. They do not determine the fate of Hallownest. But they matter. They all matter. Because a kingdom is not just its kings and knights and gods. It is the miners who sing while they work, the scholars who search for lost memories, the warriors who defend empty tunnels, the mothers who grieve for children they could not save, the lovers who wait for partners who will never return, the shopkeepers who sigh and worry and hope for better days. Hallownest fell. The infection spread. The gods warred and the kingdom crumbled and countless bugs were lost to the orange light. But in the margins of that great tragedy, small stories unfolded. Stories of courage and cowardice, of hope and despair, of love that endured and love that was lost. These are the stories we remember, not the battles between gods, but the bugs who lived and died in their shadow. Not the fate of kingdoms, but the fate of individuals. Not the grand sweep of history, but the small quiet moments that make a life worth living. Let these stories settle into you now. Let them sink down, down, down into the quiet places of your mind. Myla and her song, Quirrell and his lake, Oghrim and his endless vigil, the pale king and his terrible choices, the white lady and her frozen grief, Cloth and her search for meaning, Mendabug and his broken signs, the seer and her long wait, Zima and her flower, the hollow night and its impossible burden, Iselda and her sighs, the last stag and his hope, the nailsmith and his new beginning, Took and her simple kindness. They are all part of you now. Their sadness is your sadness. Their hope is your hope. Their rest is your rest. The kingdom sleeps. The stories are told. The bugs of Hallownest have found their endings, one way or another. Some endings were happy, some were tragic. Most were somewhere in between, a mixture of joy and sorrow that defies easy categorization. That is how life works, in Hallownest and everywhere else. We do not get to choose our endings. We can only choose how we face them. And you, listening to these stories, are facing your own small ending now. The end of a day, the end of wakefulness, the transition from consciousness to sleep, from thought to dream, from the noise of the world to the quiet of your own mind. It is a small death in a way, a letting go of everything you were today, so that you can become something new tomorrow. Do not be afraid. The dark is not your enemy. It is your friend, your companion, the soft blanket that wraps around you and holds you safe through the night. The bugs of Hallownest knew darkness. They lived in it, breathed it, made their homes in caverns where sunlight never reached. And they found beauty there. They found meaning. They found each other. You will find what you need in the dark as well. Rest, peace, the quiet that comes when you finally stop fighting and let yourself fall. The stories are over now. The sadness has been shared. There's nothing left to do but close your eyes and drift away. Good night, little ghost. May your dreams be gentle. May your sleep be deep. May you wake tomorrow refreshed and ready, carrying with you the memory of bugs who lived and loved and lost in a kingdom beneath the earth. Their stories are part of you now, and your story continues, but not tonight. Tonight there is only rest, only peace, only the soft, endless dark. Sleep well.